Picture this. It's New York City, September 15th, 2008. Outside a massive, polished glass skyscraper right in the heart of Wall Street, thousands of employees are just walking out. They're carrying their entire professional lives in little cardboard boxes. It's a totally surreal, almost movie-like scene. Some folks are crying, others are frantically glued to their phones, and some are just standing frozen on the sidewalk, completely unable to process what just happened. Because in a matter of hours, their employer, which was literally one of the most powerful and respected financial institutions in American history, had just vanished. Completely collapsed.
And honestly, the sheer scale of this collapse is almost hard to wrap your head around. Over $600 billion in assets. Poof, gone. Overnight. I mean, we're not talking about a bad quarter here, or some risky tech startup going under. This was the largest bankruptcy filing in the history of the United States, and it triggered an absolute panic that instantly froze global credit, wiped out trillions of dollars in wealth, and sent shockwaves through living rooms all around the world.
So welcome to our explainer on the fall of Lehman Brothers. We're going to unpack exactly how this went down, step by step. Because this isn't just a story about a failed business. It's a fascinating, honestly terrifying look at how a 160-year-old titan of industry was absolutely decimated by unchecked risk, an insatiable appetite for fast cash, and this blind, unshakable belief that the American housing market would just never, ever fall.
Now, Lehman's history is pretty incredible. They didn't start out in some swanky Manhattan boardroom. They started way back in 1844. A young German immigrant named Henry Lehman opened up a tiny dry goods store in Montgomery, Alabama. When local farmers couldn't pay for their supplies with cash, well, they paid him in cotton. Lehman quickly figured out that trading cotton was actually way more profitable than selling general goods. And over the next century and a half, they survived the Civil War, they survived the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and countless market crashes. They evolved into this massive global investment bank, essentially becoming the pure symbol of Wall Street's stability.
Which really forces us to ask, how does a company that survived literally every major crisis in modern history suddenly collapse in a matter of days? Was it just, a string of incredibly bad luck? Not at all. It turns out that a century and a half of constant survival created a deeply dangerous level of overconfidence. They truly started to believe they were just too experienced to fail.
Section 1. Wall Street's Rising Giant.
To really understand the collapse, we have to look at a massive culture shift that happened on Wall Street. For a long time, banking was, kind of boring. It was predictable, you loaned money out, collected interest over a few decades, and made a steady, quiet profit. But in the 1990s, Wall Street got really tired of predictable. The whole culture shifted toward this aggressive, explosive growth, and executive bonuses just absolutely skyrocketed. Success wasn't about long-term health anymore. It was a pure race for fast money, and Lehman wanted to lead the pack. We're talking top bankers taking home tens of millions of dollars a single year. Basically, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward.
But you gotta wonder, what was actually fueling this massive explosion in wealth? Where was all this cash coming from? Well, it wasn't traditional corporate lending, that's for sure. It was something that felt so safe and honestly so inherently American that nobody even thought to question it. It was the booming housing market.
Section 2. The Housing Time Bomb. Throughout the early 2000s, there was this unquestioned golden rule across the entire financial sector. Nationwide housing prices simply never fall. So Wall Street found a shortcut to cash in on that rule. It went like this. Step 1. Issue a home loan. Step 2. Bundle thousands of those home loans together into one massive package. Step 3. Sell that package off to investors around the world. It was an infinite money glitch. The banks got paid right away, the investors got steady returns, and on paper, literally everybody won. And Lehman Brothers decided they wanted the biggest piece of this real estate pie.
But here was the catch. To keep this massive money machine running, Wall Street desperately needed more and more mortgages to bundle and sell. And to get more mortgages, they had to completely drop their lending standards. They started aggressively pushing what we now call subprime mortgages. These were incredibly high-risk home loans given to people with terrible credit, little to no income, and sometimes literally zero proof of income at all. Ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets. These carried a massive risk of default, but the banks just didn't care. They figured, hey, if the borrower can't pay, we'll just foreclose and sell the house for even more money because, say with me, housing prices never fall.
To make matters even worse, Lehman poured absolute gasoline on this fire through leverage. See that tiny sliver of 3%? That was Lehman's actual real capital. The other 97%?
That was borrowed money. Lehman didn't just buy these toxic mortgage bundles with their own cash, they borrowed billions upon billions of dollars to multiply their profits. Sure, it meant record-breaking earnings while the market was going up, but they were essentially building a massive, heavy skyscraper right on top of a foundation of toothpicks.
And then, in 2006, the foundation finally cracked. The unthinkable happened. Home prices across America just stopped rising. Almost immediately, those subprime borrowers started missing their payments. Foreclosure signs started popping up on front lawns everywhere. And suddenly, those supposedly foolproof mortgage-backed securities that Lehman had hoarded, they became incredibly toxic. Nobody wanted to buy them. The entire market just froze solid.
Section 3, the final gamble.
As the broader market started to absolutely panic, Lehman made a fatal mistake. Instead of backing down, they doubled down. Publicly, their leadership was on television all the time, smiling, assuring investors they were totally fine and would easily bounce back. But privately? Oh, it was a totally different story. They were sitting on billions and billions of dollars in hidden losses tied to these overly complex financial products that even their own top-tier math geniuses couldn't properly put a price on anymore.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. What happens when Wall Street stops believing your math? The answer is catastrophic. In the financial world, trust is quite literally the only currency that actually matters. The moment the rumors started spreading that Lehman was drowning in toxic assets, that trust evaporated into thin air. Credit rating agencies downgraded them, panicked investors rushed to pull their money out, and other banks straight up stopped doing business with them. Lehman's fate was sealed. Section 4. The weekend that broke Wall Street. It's Friday, September 12th. Behind closed doors, inside the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the most powerful people in global finance realize they have exactly 48 hours to find a buyer to save the company. They know if Lehman falls, it could literally take the entire global financial system down with it. But the reality in that room was super grim. They approached several major banks, but the toxic asset risk was just way too massive. Nobody wanted to inherit Lehman's hidden losses. The potential buyers took one look and walked away. And this time, unlike with other failing banks earlier that year, the U.S. government drew a hard line in the sand and flat out refused to provide a bailout. The clock just ran out.
Section 5. The Global Meltdown.
In the early hours of Monday, September 15th, Lehman officially filed for bankruptcy, and it triggered an instant, terrifying domino effect. Because nobody knew who else was secretly holding these toxic assets, interbank lending just stopped overnight. The literal flow of credit that powers the entire global economy froze completely. Stock markets plunged all over the world. Small businesses suddenly couldn't make payroll. Major corporations ground to a halt. In the months that followed, millions of everyday people lost their jobs, and families who had played by the rules were suddenly facing foreclosure. It was absolute economic devastation.
Section 6. The Greatest Illusion. You see, this collapse wasn't just about one greedy bank. It exposed a massive, systemic rot. And it all really boils down to the four most dangerous words in finance. This time is different. An economic boom always manages to convince highly intelligent people that they've somehow found a magic formula that defies gravity. The Lehman crisis is the ultimate proof that human psychology and unchecked greed will continually convince people that risk just doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter if it's railroads in the 1800s, dot-com stocks in the 90s, or housing in 2008. The illusion is always the same. And that leaves us with this chilling final irony. Trust takes 160 years to build and exactly 72 hours to completely destroy. Lehman Brothers survived the Civil War, they survived the Great Depression, only to be entirely wiped off the map over a single weekend because they started believing their own hype. It is the ultimate, undeniable proof that absolutely no company, no matter how historic, powerful, or prestigious, is ever truly too big to fail. Which leaves me with one final question for you to think about. What is the next billion-dollar story? Where is the next bubble forming? Right now, right under our noses, while we look the other way. Keep that in the back of your mind the next time you hear someone say, "This time is different." If you found this explainer helpful in making sense of the Lehman collapse, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more deep dives. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.